The Mad Scientist Theory, written by E. Sorrow. Fatigued, Steve bounced from wall to wall in his small split-level studio apartment. He had to force himself to take a seat in his makeshift home office, a wooden desk with a lamp and two 24-inch computer monitors. He was 4 days behind on a major project that was due in 2 days, but he couldn't clear the thoughts of Stacy racing through his mind. He whispered her name to himself, Stacy Fears. Steve's fingers hovered over the keyboard, motioning back and forth for a place to start, but his thoughts were completely cluttered. He leaned back into his office chair and closed his eyes in an attempt to gain some form of focus. But the second his eyelids shut, vivid memories of his encounter with Stacy from the previous night rushed in. He still felt her warm, soft skin on his fingertips. He inhaled and smelled her sweet, intoxicating scent. He could still hear her sensuous moans and heavy breathing in his left ear. He replayed the visual memory of her warm skin rubbing up and down across his bare chest. He again repeatedly whispered her name, Stacy, Stacy, Stacy. His cell phone began to ring and Steve excitedly answered. "Hello, hey, what's up?" "Hello, it's me, Wilhelm." Steve sighed. It was not the call he was expecting. "I'm losing it," he thought to himself. Steve shook his head from side to side and then laid his head back against the top of the office chair. The stark realization of how consumed he had become left no room for debate. The term fallen instantly entered his mind. Fallen, over a woman he barely knew. Wilhelm was the nickname that Steve had given to his best friend William back in early grammar school. One day, assigned as study partners in presenting a book report on The Ugly Duckling, they discovered that the illustrator's name, Wilhelm Pedersen, was the Danish version of the name William. Steve liked the way the name sounded right away, especially the way that he pronounced it, with a long L. He felt that the name had the feel of belonging to a mad scientist, which was an accurate description of their childhood antics, as they both experimented and constantly tested the boundaries in everything that they encountered. From that day on, Steve referred to William as Wilhelm, pronounced with a long L. "Hey, Wilhelm, what's up? What's that noise? I hear a turn signal ticking. Are you on the road?" To avoid giving an explanation of where he was going and why, William quickly changed the topic of conversation. "So, how did things go last night?" Steve, with his head still resting on the back of the chair, widened his eyes and gazed at a single point on the plaster popcorn-coated ceiling. He held a strong desire to tell every single detail, but his code as a gentleman, shaky as it was, prevailed. "Well, I'll explain it like this. You are my best friend, my guy, my dog, and my bro, right? The one person who I can talk to about anything. Well, this woman did things to me that I'm not completely comfortable sharing, not even with you." "Oh, word? Nice, said William. "I find myself in that small space between the best thing that ever happened to me versus feeling somewhat violated." The two friends shared a moment of laughter. "So, it was a magic show?" asked William. "Magic? It was like the Cirque du Soleil in here last night." She was a very self-confident woman who was not at all afraid to completely express herself. Man, I'm still holding on to the possibility that she might call again tonight. It sounds like this one has the potential to turn into something serious. "Why don't you call her?" asked William. Steve sat up straight in his chair and rested his left forearm on the desk as he reluctantly answered. "Well, there are some complexities involved. She has a child, a son, a little boy who's old enough to know, well, you know. And she's separated, but in the process of getting a divorce. So I'm playing the situation a little half-speed and low-key." Steve prepared himself. He knew exactly what William's response would be. "Ooh, that sounds kind of complicated," they both said as one. Following the friendly mockery, Steve added, I know. William felt that his words were being taken lightly, and he wanted to be sure that he'd clearly expressed his concern. "I'm just saying you need to be extra careful. Sometimes when relationships are over, it's not completely over, especially when there's a kid involved. Hell, we all walk around with a spider web of unresolved ties to people from our past." Steve quietly listened, but showed no intent to use any caution. His right arm began to cramp, so Steve enabled his wireless headset and placed his phone on the desk. He then seated himself more comfortably in the chair. "Well, enough about my feeble adventures. What's the latest on your mystery lady? What was her name again?" An unintentional smile grew from the corners of his mouth as William said the name aloud. Cherie Waldrop. She called me earlier today. And I'm actually on my way to meet her. William's tone of voice noticeably changed. Oh, yeah, she just called you out of the blue? What has it been? About 2 weeks, Steve asked. Yeah, it's been about 2 weeks since I last talked to her. Almost 2 weeks. Steve easily sensed that there was more. He decided to take the opportunity to pry a little deeper. Their conversations had always been a space for open dialogue on any and every topic, but when it came to emotions and true feelings, their standard rule and shared consensus was the same: ain't none of your effing business. Steve couldn't resist the opportunity to turn the table. He intentionally threw a curveball by projecting William's phrase back at him. In your own words, sounds like this has the potential to turn into something serious. I don't know, Wilhelm. If I didn't know better, it sounds like you've fallen. Nah. She seems like a good girl. She's different. The words escaped William's mouth with immediate regret. Different? So, you have fallen. William, now embarrassed, repositioned himself in the driver's seat as he continued to drive along Highway 78 East. The spacious interior of the sedan shrank in on him. He momentarily paused with his mouth hung open as he consulted the passing highway lane markers for advice. His options: a sharp rebuttal and defensive denial, or break the rules and give a full emotional confession. I wouldn't quite say fallen, or even if that was the case, to use your words, I don't feel comfortable enough to admit that even to you. Steve chuckled. William visualized Steve's gratifying smile of success in exposing his emotions as the badgering began to pour in from the other end of the call. I knew it. So, you've been waiting for this one woman all this time? William raised both eyebrows and then engaged the right turn signal and exited the highway at West Park Place. A deep crease grew across his forehead. Waiting? It's only been 2 weeks, said William. Yeah, but 2 weeks for you is equivalent to 3 females ago. I can't believe this. Wow, I can hear it in your voice. You really have deep feelings for this girl. William approached the next traffic light and prepared to make a right turn onto Bermuda Road. He became overwhelmed with the unsolicited need to explain. It's kind of hard to explain. Since I saw her last, I haven't been able to focus on anything. It's like I can close my eyes and replay every moment of that last day we spent together. The date itself was not that extravagant. We just had a normal dinner, cruised around town and saw the sights and city lights, but it was something about her. The only word that I can think of to describe her is intriguing. I mean, she was sexy, but it was more than her physical appearance. She had a pretty face and the perfect body for her size, but it was way more than that. It was like she had this style about her, in the way that she carried herself. It was the subtle way she moved, the intent in her eyes, the way she focused her smile, and the way she spoke to me, like we were the only 2 people in the room. Steve patiently listened as William continued. You know how we used to say that every woman has that, one thing about themselves that makes her beautiful or makes her special, and how most women don't even realize it or know how to use it? Or they're too busy trying to copy another woman's one thing and end up smothering their own in the process. Well, Cherie was completely in tune with her one thing. I felt like her one thing consumed me. It pushed all my buttons and flipped all my switches. If I were to be completely honest with myself, at that exact moment is when I fell for her. She seemed to be so into me that nothing outside of her seemed to matter. It was just something about her presence. And then the icing on the cake was when she decided to stay with me that night. She was so free, she was so open, and she shared all of herself with me. Everything. She was exquisite. A brief laugh came across the phone line as William finished his soliloquy. Through his own explanation, William had revived the conflicting warm sensation and distress within himself. He reached up and pulled down the sun visor to double-check his appearance in the vanity mirror. He deeply examined every detail of his freshly groomed face as Steve's amused voice interrupted. Exquisite? As a man rule, you got to keep the exquisite girl around, but let's just pause for a second. Okay, I get it. You experienced some sort of feeling, a moment or whatever on your end. But what about her? Have you taken into consideration that for her it might have been just a one-night thing? Steve continued without giving William a chance to answer. You experienced this fantastic evening and magical night with her, but then she didn't call you for 2 whole weeks. And I know that you remember there's also something else we used to say. The strongest form of love is usually one-sided. that dream come true, that you interpret from afar. But the closer you get, the more reality is revealed. Our mad scientist theory of the moth and the flame, the one game that if you win, that victory will burn you into ashes. As a number one rule, we've always been the flame. Why would we ever consider being the moth? William closed the sun visor and smirked. We? Why did you say we? You know, if I didn't know better, I would think you're really talking about yourself and your feelings about this girl, Stacy. I mean, a kid and a soon-to-be ex-husband, that's not even your style. And just for the record, I never said the word love. William anticipated a sharp retort as he listened to Steve fumble around on the other end of the call. Calm and nonchalantly, Steve replied, I don't know what the hell you're talking about, and I would appreciate it if you would kindly stay out of my damn business. The two friends again shared a moment of laughter. So when Cherie called, what did she have to say? Did she come across like she was still into you, the same as that night? Steve asked. Honestly, hearing her voice again kind of threw me off, and I didn't really pay any attention to the details. Basically, she said that she missed me. She needed to see me, and then she invited me over. Damn! William glanced backward into an empty back seat. What is it? Steve asked. That night she left her case at my place, and I forgot to bring it with me. What, like an overnight bag or something? Questioned Steve. It's a black attaché case or some kind of briefcase. So, what was in it? Asked Steve. I don't know, man. I didn't rummage through it. It's probably her briefcase for work. If a woman leaves something at my place, by definition it's booty and will be pillaged, pun intended. William shook his head and smiled as he turned right onto the street where Cherie resided, Rainbow Boulevard. His anxiety grew more and more with each mailbox that he passed. So, how do you plan to tell her? William was confused by Steve's question. Tell her what? Tell her that you are in love with her. You said that word. I did not say that. But now that you mention it, I really don't know what to say or ask. But love, I'm not quite sure if I'm ready for that. Not yet. Whatever this is that I'm feeling, I am very uncomfortable with it, but I don't think it is love, said William. Come on, Wilhelm. Listen to yourself. You know what it is. And if you're going to be the guy in love, you have to be that guy. All the way. Don't half-step. Don't bullshit. Love is not the baby angel with a bow and arrow. Love is a diesel MMA fighter, and if you disrespect him, he will mess you up. Just tell her. Tell it to her the same way that you explained it to me. Just put it all on the table. That way you will both know the situation up front, and you'll know if what you experienced that night is true, or if it's just the moth and the flame. William took a deep breath and parked his car at the mailbox labelled 4993. I don't know. Maybe I'm just the moth? Steve sensed that all William needed was a last-minute pep talk. He wanted William to succeed as he subconsciously felt invested in the outcome. Man, you got this. Just think about it like sports. It's first down, and you just need to throw the long bomb. It's the first pitch, and you should swing for the fence. Go for it all. Don't hesitate. And whatever the outcome, you'll know that you said your piece with no regrets. Just make sure that you call me back as soon as you leave, and if I don't hear from you tonight, I'll know. It is what you think it is. All right. You good? William deeply inhaled and exhaled as he turned the car keys to switch the ignition to the off position. Yeah, I'm good. Well, all right. My man Wilhelm going big against the odds, but please don't forget, ping me back and let me know how it went. Good luck, man. Later. All right, later. William's anticipation to see Cherie had gotten the better of him. He slowly exited the car and softly closed the door behind him. He stood beside his sedan and paused to make one final inspection of his physical appearance. With each step from the car toward the doorway, William's excitement intensified. He stopped at the door and took another deep breath to calm himself. He then made 3 quick taps on the wooden front door. No one answered, but to William's surprise, the door slowly swung open. William entered and found himself in an immaculately decorated living room. The area was dimly lit by 2 designer floor lamps that were focused on a large sectional sofa that marked the center of the room. The space looked just as cozy and as welcoming as he had imagined it would. Cherie, it's William. I think you left the front door open. Hello? William examined the details of the room and lost himself in admiring the portraits of Cherie scattered throughout. He smiled uncontrollably and could not wait to see her in the flesh. He decided to have a seat on the couch and wait. As he bent down to sit, he heard the faint sound of running water. The sound was coming from behind a partially closed door on the left side of the living room. He calmly walked toward the door, softly knocked, and again announced himself. He then gently nudged the door open, but no one was there. He approached the sink and twisted the handle clockwise to turn off the water. "Where is she?" he said to himself. William left the bathroom and headed back toward the couch. The anticipation was murder. For a moment, William thought he heard Sherry's voice. He walked to the rear of the living room and yelled for her down the back hallway, but there was no response. William checked his watch and then compared his time with the time displayed on the digital clock that sat on the living room end table. "Where is she? Am I too early?" "Her car is in the driveway." William stepped back toward the front door and peeked out of the window to confirm that Cherie's car was still in the driveway. The pearl-coloured SUV was still there, but there was no sign of anyone. Suddenly an optimistic thought occurred to him. "Okay, she's in the kitchen, probably preparing a romantic-type dinner for two." En route to the kitchen, he paused and picked up a picture frame that contained a full-body photograph of Cherie from the wall shelf. As he admired the photo, he flashed back to his last memory of holding Cherie tightly in his arms. "I cannot wait to see you." William replaced the picture frame, then quietly and slowly approached the kitchen, as he didn't want to startle Cherie. He turned the cornered hallway, and finally there she was, the love of his life. The kitchen was a narrow but open, rectangular-shaped area, with cupboards and cooking appliances on the left side of the room, and a 6-chair dining table overlooked by 2 large windows on the right. Cherie sat calmly at the table, staring at the floor. The uncontrollable expansion of William's cheek muscles produced a smile, with what must have been every tooth in his mouth on display. Cherie did not respond, and appeared to not have noticed William's presence. "Cherie, it's William." The front door swung open when I knocked, so I let myself in. As he stepped further into the kitchen and clearly saw her face, he noticed that Cherie was not smiling. She held a concentrated stare at the floor. Something had apparently been spilled. William took another step and noticed that the substance on the floor was a deep, brilliant red juice or sauce that covered the majority of the floor on the left side of the kitchen. Then, with one final step, he saw it. There was a man lying face down in the middle of this substance. It was a pool of blood. An unknown, deep and raspy voice startled William by calmly inviting him into the kitchen. "Come on in," the voice sneeringly said. After a moment of initial shock, William convinced himself not to panic. The owner of the voice, Keith, stood adjacent to the stove on William's left. Keith held a gun drawn and aimed at Cherie, sitting at the table on William's right. Briefly distracted by the size of the hand cannon Keith began to swing in his direction, William weighed his options. Keith questioned Cherie. "Is this the guy? Is he the one that has the case?" I don't know who this guy is," Cherie timidly responded. Then she slowly raised her head and looked toward William, exposing watery eyes. William saw compassion in her tears and interpreted her response as an attempt to protect him from harm. "What is this?" said William. Keith had already reached his frustration limit and was even more enraged by William's presence. "Look, I don't know who in the hell you are or what game you're trying to play, but what I do know is that if somebody doesn't produce that case, there are going to be 3 corpses in this kitchen instead of 1. William, again, glanced at the floor in disbelief. A dead body was actually lying on the floor in front of him. Cherie was visibly trembling in fear. She began to babble. "This guy doesn't have it. I mean, he has it, but he doesn't have it on him. It's not my fault. There was nothing that I could do. They wanted money, then they just shot Jason and took the case." William was now bewildered and disoriented, but he didn't have time to analyze the reasoning behind Cherie's words. He focused solely on Keith, the immediate threat. He raised his hands, exposed his empty palms. Then he calmly stepped sideways toward the kitchen window. Keith again aimed the pistol in his direction. Hold on, William pleaded. With his eyes squinted, Keith carefully trained the pistol's sight on William. Just as he positioned his finger comfortably on the trigger in his peripheral, Keith caught the glimpse of a light in the darkness outside. "Step back! Move away from the window! Now!" After directing William away from the window, Keith moved in closer trading positions with William. Keith looked out across the darkness of the miniature lawn between dwellings, and he saw that someone appeared to be peeking out of the window next door. William glanced toward Cherie as she continued to sob and cry. William quickly scanned the room for something, anything, to use as a weapon. He spotted a heavy cast-iron pan sitting on the top of the stove, with a wooden countertop knife rack behind it. He leaned to his right to go for it, but it was too late. Keith suddenly ducked down to his knees below the windowsill and again aimed the pistol toward William. "What is this? Who are you? You've got people outside. Where is the case?" William calmly stepped backwards and to his right toward the stove as he spoke. "I don't know anything about a case." He knew that his chance of success was between slim and none, but it was all he had. He was going to go for it. William's tone of voice changed. "Look at her. She looks like she is scared to death. Look at how she's shaking. She would obviously say anything at this point, especially with that huge gun you're waving in her face," said William. "I came home and found Jay lying dead on the floor, and the case was gone. Maybe the neighbours took it. I don't know." Keith immediately turned his attention towards Cherie with a furrowed brow and a confused look in his eyes. "But you just said that this guy shot Jay and took the case." William's words began to resonate with Keith. Cherie was obviously delirious and afraid for her life. She would say anything. "I don't know who shot him for sure. That thing you're carrying is the only gun that I've seen. I don't know what's happening, and I regret ever getting mixed up in any of this. Just please, don't hurt me. I haven't done anything wrong. It's not my fault." Keith returned to his feet and addressed them both. "Enough. Enough of this shit. If neither of you have the case, then neither of you are of any use to me." Being careful not to slip in the blood on the floor, William continued to ease toward the stove, just a few more inches, and he would be able to grab the pan and make his move. Suddenly, the anger in Keith's facial expression faded away into an emotionless glare. His focus was solely on William. He carefully aimed the pistol and placed his finger on the trigger. He was going to fire the weapon for sure this time. 2 deafening controlled explosions sounded. William stood frozen as everything slowed to half speed. He watched as Keith fell lifeless to the kitchen floor. A small stream of blood began to meander across the floor tiles from a hole in Keith's right temple. William noticed that the strong scent of gunpowder had overtaken the room. He looked to his left and saw an image that would forever be frozen into his memory. Cherie aggressively stood with both hands wrapped around a small .25 caliber pistol, with a trail of smoke rising from the barrel. She was no longer shivering, she was no longer crying, she was no longer afraid. Her eyes were cold and steady, with a slight smirk forming at the corner of her lips. "Are you okay?" William stood frozen, too stunned to respond. Cherie stepped closer, with her gun still pointed toward the newly planted body on the floor. "William, are you okay?" William snapped out of his daze and answered, "Yeah, I'm good." Cherie grabbed his arm and led him out of the kitchen. "Good! We have to get you out of here." As they left the kitchen, William again surveyed Keith's body on the floor as the blood flow from his head wound connected to the existing pool. "Who were those guys? I don't understand what happened here." "I will explain later, but right now you need to go." Cherie hurried William toward the front door. Still in a state of shock, he paused every few steps. "What about this mess? You don't need me to help to call the cops or clean this up." "No. I can call 911 and report a break-in all on my own, but you cannot be here when the police arrive." William desperately struggled to understand how Cherie transitioned so quickly from crying and shivering to so direct and calculated. And now she stood in front of him, able to wear that smile, as if nothing had happened. Who was she? "I will come by your place later and explain everything." She continued to pull William toward the front door until he made his final stand. He was mentally shook but adamant. The clearest thought that William could process was to fulfill the reason that he had come. Wait, I don't understand what happened here or what you are involved in, and I'm not sure if I want to know, but I came here today to tell you something. I came to tell you that I'm in love with you." Cherie stopped and turned to face William. She tossed her gun toward the sofa and placed both of her hands on his cheek. She stood up tall on her toes and gave William a brief but sensuous kiss. "You saved my life." Cherie then pressed her body against William and passionately kissed him again. William lost himself in the moment. It was the touch and the kiss that he had dreamed of and longed for. He didn't want to let go. "Are you sure you're going to be okay?" William reluctantly asked. Cherie stretched her arms around him, smiled, raised her chin, and stared into his eyes. "Yes, I'll be fine." William shook his head, still grasping for understanding, but maintained eye contact. "Is this about the briefcase you left at my apartment? What's in it, or more importantly, Who in the hell are you? Cherie just giggled and responded with a cryptic statement. In moments like these, you should never stress yourself over the inconsequential. She then shuffled William through the door and out of the house. Steve pressed the enter button on his keyboard to launch the last group of reports needed to finish his project. He leaned back in his office chair and rubbed his eyes with the palms of his hands. The phone rang. "Hello, it's me, Wilhelm." Steve stretched his legs forward and sat upright in his chair. "Ah, Wilhelm, what's up? How did it go? Did you tell her? Did you throw the long bomb?" William remained silent for a moment, then responded, "Yes, I told her. I told her that I am in love with her." Steve clearly recognized William's rigidness and speculated that the outcome was bad. Judging by the difference in William's tone, Steve didn't really want to ask, but as a best friend it was his duty. "So, how did she respond?" William again hesitated in a moment of silence and then answered, "She kissed me, and I got the very distinct impression that she would kill for me." Steve grinned in surprise. "Really? Well, damn, man. That's a good thing. You win. Wilhelm won. Mad scientist theory. 0.